Most of us never really think about it, but our entire global economy pretty much runs on just a few incredibly narrow sea routes. These are the absolute lifelines of international trade. But what if the biggest threat to these routes wasn't what you'd expect, like pirates or politics, but something hidden deep, deep beneath the waves? Okay, let's dive into this.
So let's start with a single number, 85%. That is the staggering percentage of India's crude oil requirement that's met through imports. Just that one figure tells you everything you need to know about how high the stakes are when it comes to keeping these sea lanes open and totally secure.
To really get why this matters so much, we have to look at the world map. The whole global economy depends on a handful of these narrow sea channels. And they're not just lines on a map, right? You got to think of them as the pulsing arteries of world trade. Now, the technical term for these channels is a sea strait, basically a narrow passage of water connecting two bigger ones. But the really crucial part of that definition is that they act as choke points. If one of them gets blocked, for any reason at all, the ripple effects can be felt, well, everywhere, all across the globe. And the sheer volume we're talking about here is just mind-blowing. The Strait of Malacca sees almost 24 million barrels of oil pass through it every single day. The Strait of Hormuz is right behind with nearly 21 million. These aren't just shipping lanes, they're literally rivers of oil that are powering the world.
Okay, so how does this huge global picture connect back to India specifically? Well, for India, these straits are a direct lifeline. We're talking fuel supply, trade routes, economic strength, the whole shebang. A conflict that's happening thousands of miles away can have a direct impact on the price we all pay at the pump. And this dependency becomes crystal clear when you zoom in on the Strait of Hormuz. Roughly 40% of India's oil and over half of its natural gas has to pass through this one single choke point. Any kind of trouble in that region can disrupt the entire economy almost instantly.
And this isn't just some theory, okay? We've seen this play out in real time. Remember when tensions flared up between Israel and Iran? The daily cost to hire a crude oil tanker shot up multiple times over. And for India, that meant oil prices got really unstable and our supply chains were suddenly at risk. It just goes to show how distant events can hit the economy in a flash.
So, when we think about securing these routes, our minds usually jump to warships, diplomacy, maybe fighting off pirates. But the source this explainer is based on argues that there's another massive, hidden factor that we almost never talk about, one that has absolutely nothing to do with human conflict.
So here's the real question, the one that changes everything. What if the biggest threat isn't on the surface at all? What if it's a force that's way more powerful and unpredictable than any navy on Earth?
The answer? It's geology. Yeah, the rocks, the faults, the sediments just laying there quietly on the seabed. This is the hidden variable that could change absolutely everything. And here's exactly why this matters so much. A lot of these vital straits are located in some of the most geologically active zones on the planet. I mean, the Sunda Strait is surrounded by volcanoes. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait sits right on top of a tectonic rift. These critical economic arteries are running straight through nature's biggest hotspots. So let's just think for a second about what happens when these subsurface forces are unleashed. We're talking about natural disasters that have the power to disrupt global trade in an instant.
This really puts the two types of risk into perspective. On one side, you've got the surface risks we all know about, conflicts, piracy, diplomatic arguments. But on the other side, you have the subsurface risks, earthquakes, tsunamis, underwater landslides. And here's the thing, these are forces you just can't negotiate with.
So, given this massive hidden threat, how should a country like India adapt its strategy? Well, it means adding a completely new dimension to the whole idea of maritime security. Now, to be clear, India has already taken some really significant steps. It's scaled up its naval presence, it's improved oceanic awareness with initiatives like the IFC-IOR, that's the Information Fusion Center for the Indian Ocean region, it's built up strategic reserves, and it's forged key partnerships. This is a solid foundation, for sure, but it's a foundation built to counter threats on the surface.
The source we're looking at proposes adding this brand new layer, a geologically informed strategy. What does that mean? It means investing in detailed seabed mapping to actually understand the risks. It means using geological models to predict hazards. And crucially, it means involving geologists directly when you're planning critical infrastructure like ports, pipelines, and naval bases.
What this all leads to, really, is a fundamental redefinition of what maritime security even is. It's about developing a deeper perspective, and I mean that quite literally.
And this quote from the geologist Nipam Joshi, whose work this is based on, just perfectly captures this shift in thinking. The rocks and sediments lying beneath the seawaters could be just as important as any military asset. It's about finally recognizing that the seafloor matters just as much as what's happening on the surface.
So as we think about the future of global trade and our national security, this whole explainer really leaves us with one critical question to ponder. In a world of visible threats, are we truly looking deep enough to see the ones that lie beneath?